From the first chapter or two, we meet John Thomas DeLoach. He was so complex to me, but yet simple. Because here he is, he grew up with a mother who was a functioning alcoholic somewhat, grew up with, which I don't think he knew initially, the local grand wizard and plantation owner was his biological father.
That's correct.
Add to that, he then sees this beautiful woman walk into the general store that he and his mother managed, and he's blown away. Unbeknownst to him, she's actually a Black woman. She becomes the love of his life, even though he doesn't know how to reconcile those feelings. And they have 5 children together. 5 children that can't acknowledge him and that he can't acknowledge because they might be lynched. They might be murdered for acknowledging their father. So you took us from 1881 to 1967 in this book. And for as many decades as we passed, that's probably as many emotions that I went through reading this. I went from anger, disgust, pride, joy, and probably a host of other emotions in between those. It was just, it was phenomenal. I mean, I genuinely enjoyed it. So, I mean, how did this come about? And I know you told this before a dozen times probably, but how did this novel come about?
Well, I think for me, and it's interesting when you're saying that you go through a whole lot of emotions as far as reading it. I go through a whole lot of emotions for a lifetime knowing the story. And when I began to write the novel, I continue to say that it was more of a spiritual thing for me, to have the creative license to tell my family story the way that I wanted to, and to get it out there in the space. But, you know, all those things that you discussed, the anger, the pride at points, there were some things that I was not too happy about, some things I was downright ashamed about, but you know, this is the story of my family. And so it was an honor for me to be connected in the way that I was, and to write about this group of incredible people, powerful people, strong people that came together to make me. And you know, the interesting thing, we don't tend to think about it this much, but these are just 2 branches of the family, but they came together at that time, and they helped create me.
And that was interesting to watch, because on the opposite side of the DeLoach family and the McKenzie family, which is McKenzie is the woman who would be the mother of his children. You had the Hawkins family in Mississippi, dark-skinned sharecroppers, very faith-based, I guess I could say that, faith-based family. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting to see. I kept wondering, how the heck is he going to get these 2 together? Like, there's no way that he could get these together. Like, how is he going to merge that? And then when, especially like my heart, I was like, how is he going to get them together when H.R. Hawkins is married? And then that's when I experienced my first heartbreak in the movie with what happened with H.R.'s wife, Sarah. And that was devastating to read, because you think this is a woman, she was saving children from a burning structure. Mm-hmm. And the reward for her bravery was to be lynched.
Mm-hmm. And you know, the interesting, I was just going to say, the interesting thing is that we don't even think about the concept of women being lynched. We always tend to go to American males, but the struggle was all the way across the board with people of African descent, enslaved people, were lynched, they were mistreated, they were brutalized. And I think that's something that is a part of the history. It's one of those parts that is painful to relive, but I think it's an important part to expose and to have people be aware of.
Yeah, the pain for HR was palpable. I mean, it hopped off the page. You could feel it. And then, but the great thing too about the way it was written, you saw the connection between him and William, that brotherly support. It was just one of many displays of how important a strong family unit is. Right. Even when, and the other thing that I noticed too was even when you had a father who, we won't talk about Deloach, who was an alcoholic and couldn't claim them, but on the Hawkins side, your father was how many Black fathers are portrayed, as stoic and unemotional, even though they love their children, you know, but they don't know, they weren't equipped back then to even know how to express those emotions. And so you always see the Black father as this tough, stoic, unemotional being, but the relationship between William and HR was very loving and open to a degree. William was more of a father figure, I think, to HR than Levi was.
Well, I think for Levi, his biggest concern was survival. And so he had to figure out how to take care of this large family. And the way that he figured out to do it was everybody worked and everybody took care of everybody. And so it's unfortunate that he had to be stoic, but I think that was something that he had to do to survive. And to have his children and his two wives survive over that time.
Yeah, and he had a large 17 children, I think it was in the book. And that makes sense. That makes sense. I always tell, something I always say is that, you know, you can't judge people, because when you're in the midst of whatever storm you're going through or whatever struggle, you're just trying to breathe. You're just trying to live. And so that probably, I think, applies to how Levi felt then. He was just trying to survive, trying to live, and just trying to breathe.
Yeah. And you know,
take care of his family.
And when he loses his first wife, and you know, we don't detail it in the novel, but he loses his first wife, and you know, he has to figure out, well, how am I going to take care of these kids that I have? And then at that point, enter my 2 times great grandmother, Renzi, and she was literally the backbone of that family, and embraced her stepkids, and they were her own from the time that she became a part of that family. So that dynamic, that strength that she showed, I think was really, really a large part of the Hawkins family. It was what kept them connected, and even time and space and distance, they still had a sense of family. And I think a large part of it was because of Renzi.
Yeah, and I love the scene where William and Paulina are there, and they're offering to take Horace back with them to Yazoo City. And, you know, they're looking to Levi for the final approval, but he's looking at Renzi saying, so we know who's wearing the pants in that relationship. I enjoyed that moment too. That was really good. And it showed her strength. And I think it showed, you know, he respects her opinion too.
Well, and I think the other thing is that everyone in the family realized that Horace was a little different, and HR, he was a little different. And I think that he was seen as the one in the family that was destined to do some wonderful and great things. And my great grandfather, H.R. Hawkins, went on to do some wonderful things. He was a builder of churches. He was preacher, reverend, minister, and so he was the one that kind of transcended the poverty of the Mississippi Delta, and literally because of the decisions that he made and the way he navigated his life, here I am generations down the line, and I am grateful because he gave me an opportunity, unbeknownst to him at that time, but he gave me the opportunity to have a better life. So,
and to think though, it could have been shortened had the situation with the Mississippi trooper played out differently.
Oh yeah.
And he stood strong. I'm not bound to any man, not as long as I have breath in my body, and God, with me. Loved it. Just another show of his strength. And him taking in his brother's son. That was terrifying to think about too. His nephew having to flee his home in the middle of the night for something that he was accused of that he didn't do, which, has notes of notes of what Emmett Till endured, and many other Black men and women had to endure false accusations and then losing their lives for crimes that they didn't commit. And then, just thinking about this young man having to flee his home in the middle of the night, and HR and his wife, Bessie, taking him in without a second thought,
Right.
So I love that. But now on to Miss Bessie. She was a force. I loved Bessie. She was amazing. Not only did I identify with her from the respect of, just having her strength, but when she started talking about when Battle said, Bessie just knows these things. That's a common thing I think you hear in the South, because a lot of people believe in, some of us have visions, or we have moments of clarity that come to us, and we don't know why we're receiving them, but you receive them, and you just have to, deal with it. And it was just like nothing. Everybody knew when she showed up at the hospital with her daughter, that scene, oh my God.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting with that, and I shared that for me as an author, it was important for me to have a creative license to be able to tell the story in the manner that I needed to tell it. But I will say this, as reported by my grandmother, Lucille, to my mom, Elaine, Ida Elaine, that story is actually absolutely accurate. That's the way it happened.
Wow. Yeah, that whole scene with the train, I was just, oh, please don't let this baby get hit by this train. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So, but wait a minute. So your mother is the spicy one of Lucille's children.
Yeah.
When she said
my mom is
Jonetta, she did not like Jonetta, and she said, well, she smells like pee-pee. I was like, oh my God. I literally laughed out loud at that, but she was so, and when Aranita said, our family is, more my skin tone, which is dark complected, and you're the light one. You're probably adopted. And she runs into the living room, and she says, I'm adopted. And the parents chuckle. I was like, look at all that spiciness, and the fact that she was 4 or 5, and she's gonna run up and hit the little white girl who called her a half N-word, because I don't like to use the word, but a half N-word. I was like, Missy, okay.
Well, the interesting thing, my mother is 79, and I'm blessed to have her still with me. And anyone that knows my mother has a very quiet demeanor, but she is tough as nails. and that feistiness that you see in the 4-year-old or the 5-year-old Elaine is very, very apparent in the 79-year-old Elaine that I have today. And, as I write the book, I literally, because I'm so familiar with her and the way that she has always told me these stories, I have a very good idea of literally how she was, how my aunt was, how her father, and how my great grandfather HR was. So it was seamless in a way for me to do it because I was so familiar with them. But I wanted to do them, if it makes sense, I wanted to do them due justice. I wanted them to be able to tell their story through me, and I'm hopeful that I was able to do that.
Well, I think you did an excellent job. Even not knowing them perfectly, I think the characters were, even though they were based on real individuals and true events, the fictional retelling of it, I think, was still done very well. You had a lot of historical references in there, with the HBCU, and I learned something new from the W.E. Du Bois with the 10% comment. I'd never heard of that. What is it? 10% of African Americans will be the one who lead the community.
That concept is referred to as the talented 10th.
And the talented 10th, yes.
Yes, and the talented 10th were 10% of the academics and the successful and individuals that were able to navigate in this society that is rooted in systemic racism. They were able to navigate it, and they were by Du Bois that he thought that they could lead us as a people with their knowledge and the way that they did things, and they could take on roles of leadership. So the Du Bois talented 10th.
Yeah, I love that. I had never heard that before. So my copy of the book, this is not it. I have a second copy, but my first copy is littered with highlights and markers and tabs and all this kind of stuff. I love the fact that you also included in, images from, the family within the book. This is Lula Hawkins, which was HR's youngest sister.
Right.
Seeing battle, and he looked so innocent, but he was so fierce. The way he protected his family. I love the way he protected Bessie. Here's H.R. Hawkins. So I'm hoping you guys get copies of this book because he gives you not only, historical points to connect with, but, there's visuals in here to add some texture to it. And these are good visuals for reference points. I enjoyed it. I mean, even starting with, the cover of the book. I just love that.
The pictures that I have been exposed to, these were not pictures I grew up with. These were pictures I found in the research for the novel. So I had heard about these people. I didn't have visuals of them for quite a while. And as I started to research and literally learn the levels of, my 2 times great uncle Battle was, man, I can't even begin to describe the type of man he was. Part of the first officers training in Des Moines, Iowa, at World War I, and so, and a physician. I come from powerful stock. I don't think I always realized how powerful until I literally started doing the research and was like, wow.
Yeah, because both sides, Hawkins and Mackenzie's, were solid, educated in different ways, resilient, a powerful, powerful family on both sides. And that just reminds me too that a lot of us, if we did our ancestry, if we did, research on our family trees, we would understand or probably see some of the power that we come from. I think a lot of that is lost unfortunately, on today's youth, because you don't realize the power that your history holds.
Well,
and I think oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think what happens sometimes as you get older and with maturity, and when you have to travel through some of these spaces, then that you realize, that the people before you had it so much more tough than you ever could even begin to have. And so for me, I think maturity helped me. I don't think as a 19, 20-year-old kid, I was as connected to the story as I am now at 56. I understand the power in my ancestors, and I understand that they were just some solid individuals that traveled through some difficult times. And as all families, you have levels of dysfunction, love, levels of despair, levels of rising above some difficult times, but they were some resilient people. And I think we have to start understanding, as African Americans, we come from survivors. And so when we can't dismiss that we are here for a reason, and we're the survivors. We're the survivors of people that were brutalized and treated horribly, but they made it through. And so that's a powerful narrative to exist off of. And I think that everyone needs to try to tap into that. And I think they would find that, my family story is probably not so different from anybody else's. It's just I have the privilege and the knowledge to know some about it and to be able to research it. But I think it's probably out there for everyone to get a piece of and to kind of understand where they came from.
So one of the other things that stood out to me was something that is still relevant today: colorism. And I think it was displayed perfectly with, because you hear me talk about that all week, like I've been mentioning it all week, but one of the best displays of colorism in the book was Elaine's reaction to HR. And Battle, he sticks HR, greets her with a handshake. She doesn't shake it. But then Battle comes in and says, Battle, when he's initially meeting Bessie's family, Elaine doesn't greet him. She looks at him like, what the heck is he doing here?
No,
but then
I want to clarify that's Ellen. My mother is Elaine.
Ellen, yes.
Yeah. But Elaine was actually named after Ellen. But but it's
and I meant Ellen, yes, sorry. When Ellen, meets HR for the first time, she's kind of taken aback. But then Battle comes in and basically says, I know you're a good man, but you guys are setting yourself up for trouble because Bessie appears white. And people are going to think you're a mixed race couple. And so HR is offended, rightfully so. But, colorism was an issue back then, and it's still one today. Why do you think that is still an issue?
Well, I think that it is, unfortunately, we don't seem to understand. See, for me, within the family dynamic, and especially with my mom's side, we literally have come out every color of the rainbow, and we're the rainbow generations that are coming next that Bessie referred to in some of her visions in regards to into our family. I think that it is just something that has permeated through generations, and I think it's been used to divide us. Just as in human space, the construct of race has divided us for so long. And this concept of colorism within our African-American communities and some of our Latin communities is simply a microcosm of this construct of race, where we are taking one group of people and trying to elevate them over another group of people. And, you know, and it goes both ways. You know, as a kid, I was teased by some of my darker skinned family members, and, you know, it goes back and forth. And it's just something that I think we have to be conscious, and we have to do our best to rise above it. The higher power blessed me with 2 children, and my son is my brown bronze firstborn, and love him unconditionally, and my baby is my light girl. But you know, I never ever made a difference in between them, just because I was so aware of you know, some of the things that were behind that. Now, I will tell you this: I understand there are some spaces that they have to navigate, and my son, being a darker complexion male, I had to have some difficult conversations with him as a means of making sure that he came home safe every night. Had similar conversations with my daughter, but maybe not to the extent that I had to have it with my male brown skin.
Yeah, and that, even when I was growing up many moons ago, you know, growing up being called Oreo, or you're pretty for a dark skinned girl. And when I started dating, I don't really date dark skinned girls, but there's something about you. But are you sure you're Black? Because I have like really reddish undertones, and like one of my grandparents is full Cherokee. Well, I have it on both sides, full Cherokee grandparents. And so out of all my siblings, I took on their features a little bit more. And so some people just, are you sure you're Black? Well, last time I checked, I was. But I can't just be Black. I have to be exotic, or I'm talking white or acting white, or just all those idiotic things that you had to hear growing up. And my nickname is Black Baby. And both of my siblings, well, all of my siblings are caramel complected, if not a little bit lighter. And so I was the darkest one, and really had an issue even accepting my brown skin as I was growing up. And it took me to adulthood to finally learn that they weren't calling me Black. They were looking for the Black Baby because my last name was Black. But all those years, I carried a little bit of hate for my skin, because I thought it made me less attractive and less desired. I try extra hard even now with things because you don't feel good enough. But
you know,
those are,
isn't it interesting that you can share that story today in regards to your experience, and I can look at it from my perspective. And I was called Red Man by my grandmother's first cousin, and I remember wanting to be darker and wishing I had this. And I found out later, I used to think that the red hair that I had as a child, I thought it was from it could have been from European ancestry, but I found out later that my very dark-skinned great-grandfather, HR, started to shave his head because he had red hair as a dark-skinned Black male.
I saw that and I thought, that's a typo. Has to be. Because we're talking about the Hawkins, not the Mackenzies. And that's interesting.
So if if my mother had the red hair, my granddaughter has a reddish, brownish hair, And like I
She's
said,
gorgeous.
well, thank you. I appreciate it.
She is gorgeous.
She is the new apple of my eye. I think
Yeah.
I think everyone should have the opportunity in this lifetime to be a grandparent. It is wonderful.
I'm going to leave that to you. So, I'm not ready. They can get a dog or a cat. I'm not ready. So I'm going to leave that to everybody else.
Okay. All right.
I just want to borrow the grandchildren for a little bit and then give them back. I don't want any of my own yet.
I think for me, it's so interesting. I wasn't always sure I was going to be a father. And so I never even thought about this concept of being a grandfather. And it's just like, here she is, and kind of waving that little hand. And, I couldn't be more blessed than to have her as a part of the family.
So what does it mean to have another generation in the family to you?
It means everything. It means hope. It means that you want to teach her everything, and hopefully that her life will be blessed, that she can make a difference. And you try to instill, as you did with your children, you instill values and morals that hopefully she will be able to take generations into the future. So when she's talking about, and she's not talking yet, but they want her to call me Poppy. Well, when she's talking about Poppy to her great-grandchildren who have no idea of who this individual is, hopefully some of the things that she'll learn from me and about our family and about what it is to be a part of this family will transcend and will go forward. The interesting thing, we live in this digital age, and I was thinking about this the other day, be as difficult to connect the way that we're trying to connect, and we're researching and we're digging things up. You have social media profile that will be archived, and generations on down the line will be able to tap into that and get a sense of, my great-great-grandchildren will be able to get a sense of who I am by being able to access those things.
Yeah. So I want to talk about Ellen's children specifically for a second. Devastated with what happened with Beauregard. It seemed like there was some mystery there as to what truly happened to him. And initially I thought, because he was out in the field working, and he passed away shortly after, I think. So with dehydration, heat stroke, or was there something nefarious going on?
Well, and that's something that I kind of leave for the reader. His death was very mysterious. He died very young. And so I kind of leave that out there for the reader to determine. There were some things that were going on, and people were concerned about, this Black man now was basically managing this large amount of land and doing some wonderful things with the things he had learned at Tuskegee under George Washington Carver. And so you really don't know, and I guess I give that to the reader to determine, was it something that was nefarious, or was it something that was natural? But I intentionally left it that way for the reader to kind of determine how they wanted to receive it.
And then Britain, tuberculosis, ended his life young. His wife, she passed away young as well. It was nice to see she was the college best friend of Bessie's. To see them get together after she was fawning over him in college was interesting. Bill, who took on a little bit more of their father than anybody probably expected. And, he held a lot of, and he felt angry.
I think Bill I think Bill was sandwiched in between battle and Britain. And you have to think about it. These two high achieving individuals both became physicians. And not that Bill did not have his own story, but it seemed like he was always chasing battle's shadow. And so I think he struggled with that concept. And he also, I think he struggled with, as I think they all did with their relationship with John Thomas. But I think that void, and I don't know that Bill probably recognized it, but he had a lot of resentment for his older brother. He loved his older brother, but he had a lot of resentment towards him also.
Yeah, and you felt it. You felt the resentment and like I said, the anger, in particular with the army scene. I lost my train of thought. It was something I was going to say about Bessie, but I can't recall what it was. So I'll come back to it. The Hawkins children were they all? So all of them worked as sharecroppers, and then when Francis's family was in DC, they were also sharecroppers at that time too.
Francis.
Is it Francis? HR, the daughter who took in Levi when he was in his advanced age.
They're in Mississippi. They're a little bit outside of Yazoo, in between Belzoni and Yazoo, but they're in an area of Mississippi. Okay. So when HR goes back to Mississippi all those years later, it's in a neighboring town. If you remember, if you remember that's his visit, and he's coming after all these years to see his family, and that's when
which was an emotional. That was an emotional home visit.
Right.
That he makes with his new wife, Maggie.
Maggie, yeah. And Maggie is she's my step great grandmother, but she's the only great grandmother through that line that I ever knew.
Wow.
And so for me, and it's interesting, we called her Maggie. When I was a little boy, I just thought that was something that you called your great grandmother. You know, like how you hear some people will call their great grandmother Nana or something like that. I thought everybody had a Maggie.
Yeah. Wow. So the general store, that was a real thing too. Wow. Yeah.
Wow. All of that, all of it is based on factual information, and we just kind of intertwined the facts with the story that I wanted to tell. But yeah, the store, the family store, it was factual all the way down to John Thomas referring to the cat as the N-word, is family story.
Because when I read that Bessie said the N-word and she was referring to the cat, for whatever reason, like initially I thought, and I was with HR, I'm going to look at you sideways, because I thought she was talking to him, just the way it just came out of the blue.
Right.
And I got a kick out of the fact that the Colonel, John Thomas's father, also the Grand Wizard in that region, his money went to further Negro children's education, because John Thomas used that money to help his family. I was like, he should have been rolling over in his grave.
Yeah, sent five children of African descent to Tuskegee Institute. Absolutely.
Yeah. I got a tickle out of that. I was like, he should be rolling over in his grave. He sent all these, undesirable Black people to college and further their education, and and positively impacted their livelihood.
And if you think about that time frame, 5 kids, all were college graduates. That's powerful.
That's astounding. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's astounding. Was HR the only one in his family able to go to college of Levi's children?
He's the only one that I'm aware of. Now, there are so many of them that I don't know the complete stories, but he's the only one that I'm aware of that did. Now, we're doing this right now, and I'll have a cousin to say, "Oh no, so and so." But as far as I know, he was the only one that I'm aware of. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you made a comment earlier about there are another couple of books in you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy to hear about that. Will either one of them be maybe an offshoot of the Synchronization of Life?
Well, I think that I'm just going to leave it out there to say, I think if you were a fan of this story, the next one is, I don't even know that you can trump it. That's an entendre right there. I don't even want to. But what I'll just simply say, it's just been interesting as I do some of this research and some of the stories that are out there, and this next story for me has been right in front of my eyes for years, and I didn't see it. And so I'll just say this next one, if you're a fan of this book, you'll be a fan of the next one. And then I think the last one, I think these first two will be kind of similar in their presentation, and then the last one I'm gonna just kind of go free form with it. But I've already started to outline and do some research in regards to the next book, and we're doing the work on it right now.
Well, I will say that you did your thing. You did an excellent job with this book. I'm a fan. I love the way it flowed. I love the narrative storytelling. The characters were well done. The plot, you mixed in it was a perfect mix of fact and fiction, and a very good retelling of American history, which is also, Black history, which is American history. As much as some people don't like to think about it being that way, it is.
We have to continue to
perfect blend.
We have to continue to emphasize that Black history is American history, and until we start to receive and have people across the board understand that, until we start referring to it as all American history, then I will emphasize the fact that Black history, our story, is as important as anyone's story in this country's history.
Agreed. And I think that is the perfect note to take us out of here. Thank you again for meeting me and talking about this book. Again, I'm a true fan of it. I don't know what took me so long to get to it. I had another book club member who read it, and she was like, "You got to hurry up and read it." And so that is what kind of lit the fire up under me. And we've been talking about it, but I hadn't fully finished it. And so once I, got into it, I didn't want to stop. And so, fantastic job. I hope you guys will get your copy. I hope you'll leave reviews for it and get ready for the next novel from Dr. Copeland, because he knocked it out of the park with this one. And everybody knows I don't give 5 stars. So this got a 5.
Oh, wow. And I know, something? I know that about you. So I am truly, truly, truly humble. I'm actually ecstatic about it. So if you're giving me a 5-star, then I know I've done my due diligence, and I have something that's special. So I'm humbled and I'm grateful by that review. And we just continue to try to get the work out there in the space, and we continue to try to do the work that I think our creator wants us to do. And we'll share the stories of our history as African Americans in this country.
All right. All right. Thank you. And we are out of here.
We'll see you later. Thank you.
Mhm.